Welcome back to the S Girls Basketball Podcast, where we hear from real women, real ballers, and real stories. Today, we have a returning guest, and we actually get to get her one-on-one because we had her and her sister on. So we are welcoming back Ashley to the podcast, and we're just going to dive more into her story, what she brings to the whole world of sports, and just all the things that she's learned. So I'm really pumped to have her back on. So hey, Ashley, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's so good to see you guys again.
Yes.
Thanks for coming back, for sure.
Yes, we're
Thanks
pumped.
for having me.
Yes, so we didn't get to do it last time with you and your sister, but we do have a tradition on this podcast where we ask everybody, what is the biggest piece of advice you would give your younger basketball self? But we're switching it up to softball self because, we're switching the sport up.
I was going to say, I would be prepared either way because
Good answer.
Forever. But
Either
honestly,
way.
I think the answer is the same for both sports.
Yes.
And this was something that I realized much later in my career. I actually broke a record at Purdue, and I remember after I did it, I was like, Dad, I did that for you. And my dad goes, why would you do that for me? And I'm like, I've always played for you. And my dad goes, you should never play for me. So I think my advice for my younger self would be stop trying to please Dad, stop trying to play for him, and play for yourself. And that may sound kind of selfish, but I think a lot of athletes, especially the ones I work with, they have the same issue. They're playing to please their parents instead of just do it for you, make the shot for you, get the hit for you. So that would be my advice for my younger self.
That's huge. I absolutely love that. That's honestly one of a kind. We have not had that yet. And I just think that's so valuable because we've touched on it a little bit just throughout the 2 seasons that we've had the podcast, and about, people who are so pressured by their parents to perform or to play, or they're not playing for the right reasons. So it's really important to solely play for yourself or to make an impact in a positive way, or, those things. So I love that. That was fire. She's starting off strong.
Yeah, I was like, if this is how we're going today, I'm excited to see where this goes.
That's what you're gonna get.
All right, perfect. But I do want to feed off that really quick. I think that is something that is kind of being talked about more and more nowadays. Definitely needs more emphasis. But play for yourself. You have your own love of this game, and you have the drive and desire that even got you into the sport. And sure, maybe we had role models or influencers that helped us pursue that dream or that favorite avenue we wanted to go down. But at the end of the day, when things get tough, trying to compare yourself or uphold your standards to other people's standards is the hardest thing to do, on top of a challenging sport, on top of trying to get a hit against a D1 pitcher, on top of trying to hit that shot when you're guarded by the best defender in the league. It is huge to have that confidence in yourself and be like, I'm going to make this play for me. I'm going to do what's best for me and play my hardest. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're in control of. No one else can control you. You can't control anyone else is doing. But at the end of the day, if you're walking off that court, off that field, and your feet hurt, you're sweating, you might even be crying after the game. And that's how you know you gave your all. And that's something that probably more kids need to hear about, instead of making a shot or a pass and looking in the stands like, oh, do you approve? Or was that okay? You're going to make mistakes. It's a life lesson in general, no matter what sport it is. But at the end of the day, like I said, which you're saying too, do it for yourself, and it's going to be the greatest reward after.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned the crying part, because I don't think enough people welcome that, crying is a sign of weakness to some, but if you did everything you possibly could to win the game and you lost and you cry, that probably means that you cared. So
exactly.
For crying after a game, I've done it.
Oh, me too. I remember, this is kind of a throwback though. It was my junior or senior year of high school. And we were playing a game. It was against Bishop Dwenger versus Bishop Luers. So it was the in-town rivalry or whatnot. And I set a school record and I scored 49 points, but we lost by 8. And I went in that locker room. I was bawling my eyes out. I took responsibility because I missed free throws that I should have made. But I was just you know what? This was our game. I care about this team. We put in so much work, so much effort. That should have been ours. And I wasn't the only one to shed tears that game. It was probably one of the most emotional games I've ever played in. But it made me love my team even more. It made me love myself even more. It made me love the sport even more. So just being able to show emotion, I agree with you. It should be appreciated more. It should be allowed. It should be encouraged, because you just see these quote unquote robots of players going out on fields and not really giving any emotion or whatsoever. And you're like, do you even care? Like, does it even matter to you? So to hear that and to see that you stand behind me with that, it's really huge, because I think emotion is part of any game that we play.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Special.
That's huge. Ashley, too, we when we were talking about what we wanted to kind of cover in this podcast, you mentioned something that you wanted to talk about, and that was the difference between mental health and mental skills. And I thought that was interesting because I never like heard, I obviously I've heard of mental skills, I've heard of mental health, but like the difference, and kind of, I'm really interested to hear your perspective of that, what the difference is, what do you define those as, and all of that. So go ahead and kind of give us a little rundown of what you want to hit with those two things.
Yeah, so I remember last episode that we recorded, we had mentioned mental health, and it's something where it really tripped something up in me, because I had interviewed one of the Phillies mental skills coaches. And so she works for, I think, one of the minor league organizations for the Phillies. Her name's Hannah Huseman. I had her on my podcast, but she kind of opened my eyes to this, mentioning how she is not a physician. She is not a doctor. And when it comes to mental health, like, that has to do with what doctors prescribe. So like, she is not a doctor. She doesn't have her PhD, her medical PhD, but she has studied sports psychology, but is not a psychologist.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
mental health, that's more of like with a psychologist or a psychiatrist. That's like, there are issues that need to be figured out that have to do with the chemistry of your body. Now, she is a mental skills coach. So what she does is she helps athletes prepare mentally, you know, to visualize and journal and do all of these things, which physicians do. I also had my sports psychologist, Dr. Carr, on my podcast, and he talked about the differences between the two. And so I don't think it's talked about enough, like you were saying. So it really opened up my eyes to know that, okay, a mental skills coach is not somebody that you should go to if you like have depression and, you know, things like that require a doctor's help. And I like mentioning this too, because I am also a coach, and some people want those services from me, but I will never touch mental health, because I know how to get you confident, but like, if there are other things that I cannot touch, I am not a doctor in some of those realms. So it's kind of like one of those weird things that people put them together a lot, but knowing the difference between like mental health and mental skills was something that I had to do more research on, because there is a big difference. Mental skills is like preparing, making sure your mind's right before you're at bat or before your game. But mental health is like, there's a serious problem, like chemically, like that needs to be addressed by a doctor. So
that's great that you mentioned that. I agree, because I think we can get too caught up in like that as well. You know what I mean? Because I'm like talking, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can give you like the skills of, you know, like you say, confidence, how to prepare, how to imagine, how to journal. I can give you advice that I've learned through learning these things, or if we have similar tendencies when it comes to the way we think or whatever, you know, those types of things. But it is very different. And it is, I mean, mental health is so important. And a lot of us struggle with it, that if it's really that serious, you need to go see someone who's actually like you said, prescribed to, like, they can actually diagnose you and help you and get you what you need. And then you go, you know, with mental skills, like, because it's the same thing, I feel like, as like, you know, a classroom, like you're learning different skills and sets and all these things, but it's not like, you know, you're learning from a doctor who like might know this, you know what I mean? So it's very like, you have to be careful with those things. And I'm the same way, like with coaching and stuff, I'm very careful, because I do not want to cross the line of, you're coming, like, it's like hard, because I'm like, okay, if you're depressed or you're dealing with severe anxiety, like, you can come and talk to me if you need to vent or you need comfort or you need something like that, but like, I am not qualified to help you. Like, as much as I want to, I can't. So it's like being very open and saying, like you said, here's the skills. I'll help you be more confident. I'll help you imagine. I'll help you, and I'll give you tools on journaling, blah, 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 blah. But like, girl, when it's something serious, I know people who are like actually like this. I will give them your contact information. You know what I mean? Like, and that's me loving you, because I'm not going to set you up for failure because I'm being selfish and want to like fix everything, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's huge how you touched on the mindset skills and that kind of topic. at my previous school, we would have to journal after every game, win or lose. And we were allotted like probably 10 or 15 minutes like after the game. It's just us players, whether we're crying, we're sweating, we're cheering, whatever it is. We had those minutes to just calm down, write our feelings, what we could have done better as a team, ourselves, and just anything you took away from the game. And I remember, and I still have my journal to this day for 3 years straight, the very first thing I would put on every single line after every single game is be the best player that I can possibly be. And that is kind of what got me through my hard times. I don't know if you guys can hear that train. I'm so sorry. But that is what got me through, especially it was kind of like a catch-22 situation. We were told and encouraged to journal about our feelings, what we were feeling throughout the game, throughout like practices in the year. But I was in the position where my mental health wasn't good. It wasn't being taken care of. It wasn't being prioritized. So I was kind of like, my only escape and belief in myself at times was what I wrote in this journal and what I told myself and what just my closest roommates said to me. Like, believe what you're writing down in that journal. Like, I saw what you did this game. Like, you did good. What they're saying, it doesn't match the actions. Like, I don't get it just as much as you do. But on those hard days, I would read that line again and just say, be the best player that I can possibly be the best person that I can possibly be. And the like effect that journaling had on me, that got me through. It really did. Just on those pages with that pen, that's all it took for 3 years. And it's crazy to think that, but I mean, techniques just like that can help build your mental mindset when you're not in a healthy environment. And that is something that should be encouraged. Like, if you need counseling for anything, like, that should be encouraged. Everyone should go. That would just make this world probably 10 times happier. Everyone would probably be happier. I know I would. Yeah, I probably would, but I'm just kidding. But I think it should be encouraged, especially when times are rough and you don't know. Jot down those ideas, those thoughts, but positive affirmations as well can help you get through things that you don't think you can possibly get through.
Yeah, totally. Journaling, it's so good. Like you mentioned, sorry to interrupt you, but I've seen massive results, just like you felt, with athletes that they go over the positive and the good, because as athletes, I know you guys are probably the same way. The first thing we want to think about is what we sucked at.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, actually, I did all of these great things, because think about it. If somebody were to give you a bunch of compliments, you're going to feel good about yourself. So why don't we give ourselves those compliments after a game, and then we can dive into the not so great stuff, because it should be talked about. You should talk about how to improve based on the performance. Like, how can you get better? But like, starting with the compliment, it just puts you in the right mindset to be like, okay, now I'm ready to talk about the other things that I learned as well. So that's so cool that you felt that. And that's an awesome testimony about that.
No, journaling is huge. Like, that's stuff. It's funny because like I remember I've journaled since I was little, and honestly, like, I think that's the film major in me. Like, I'm a storyteller, so I like love to like write my day, and I always had this fantasy that like my journals were going to be found in an attic and my great grandchildren were going to see it and they were going to be like, oh, Jay did this and whatever, you know what I mean? So, but fast forwarding that, I think we have such a stigma of journaling like that, though, like that it is like, oh my gosh, so-and-so like wrote me a love letter today and then this, and I have a crush on this person. Like, you know, you kind of like fantasize like that's like the journaling experience, but really it's like to jot out like how you're feeling and like positive affirmations. What do you want to work on? All of these like things. How did you feel in this day? How did you feel in this moment? Those things. And I've even found too, and honestly, I think a whole other podcast can be done on just journaling and positive affirmations because it's huge. But like even recently, like with journaling, I did this thing where there was focuses that I wanted on like in my life. Like I was like, okay, here's some focuses. And then I didn't like forget about them. Like I knew they were my focuses, but that's what I journaled on. That's what I prayed on. That's what I like was focusing on within that like 50 something days. And then at the end of the journal, when I started my new one, I looked and I was like, how did my life improve from this to this? And it and you actually see the results because I wrote them down. It's like when we take progress pictures of like our body, if we're trying to like work out and get whatever, like it's progress. It's just we're writing it down. And I think as an athlete or in the athletic world, we don't take it as serious as a tool as it is. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, both of you, because it is so huge. And even like I am statements, like I'm huge on those. Again, this is like honestly again a whole nother conversation because it's
like
so
you could go on forever about this.
It's huge, like it's so big. But yeah, I'm glad we got to kind of touch on that, because I think anybody who's listening to this and is a coach or wants to be a coach or skills development or anything like that, like understand that there's different levels to mental health, mental skills, and like don't cross those boundaries if you're not qualified, because it is that big of a thing. So be very aware.
I love that you mentioned I am statements, because I call those power statements to my kids.
Yeah.
Like they're literally, it always starts with I am, and then you follow it with what you want to be. You're not always this, but like that you want to be. Like my power statement is I am a strong leader. And I'm telling you, there are days where I just want to sit on the couch and just veg it up all day. But those are the days where I probably didn't tell myself my power statement to start my day.
Right.
And I love that. I love that that's a thing like around other sports too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I do that with like the minute Emma onboarded with me, I made her do it. Like we have a commitment statement here, and like it's like, what are you committed to? And I implement it with all of my girls. Like, and I tell them like, it also like you feel like you like, because there's such a stigma of like being cocky and full of yourself, but like you feel like really out of your comfort zone doing it, because you know as a when I played, I would be like, I am the best ball handler on every court I step on. I might not be, but in my head, like that's where I want to be. So it's like it encourage you and like those types of things. So it's very like it's so powerful. It's like it seems so cheesy, but like it is so powerful, and it's really a cool tool for sure. But do you guys have anything else with that?
Well, when you said you're the best ball handler in the court, like you said, even if you're not, you're gonna do what it takes to be the best ball handler. Like you see somebody else doing, you're like, but I'm the best one, so here you go. Like here's my level up, you know?
And I'm gonna do better. Exactly. And I think that
speak it into existence.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know, I'm sure like you both can relate, and I'm sure multiple athletes can relate too. But even like say like when you're working out like on your own and like you're thinking of previous games or what's coming up, and you just do one more rep, but then you're like, you know what? No, my opponent's doing one more, so I'm gonna do two more. You know, I'm gonna do three more. I'm gonna do four more. And you put yourself in that mindset that like, no matter what's ahead of you or what's coming, like you are gonna put your best foot forward. You're gonna be the best athlete you can be. You're gonna prepare as best as you can, and that's what you're gonna give. You're gonna give your best, because at the end of the day, like I always say, you have you to stand up for, you have you to work for and to live for and to strive for. And with those I am statements, and even just telling yourself before a workout, that gives you so much power and enthusiasm in yourself and your abilities that you can take off to the sky. Like no one can stop you.
Exactly. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad we got to touch on that, because it's super powerful stuff. But actually I kind of want to transition into more of like your coaching background, and also too, I just want to ask, like, what was some of the factors in your life that really want to make you want to become a coach? And through that, how has coaching been impactful to your life?
Yeah. So I think coaching itself was always in my DNA. My dad was my coach the majority of my career. And he was one of the best coaches that I had. And I also had some other phenomenal coaches in my career. But I also had some coaches that really weren't good. And I'm not going to say their names, I'm not going to call them out, but I think that I probably learned a lot more that I wanted to be a coach through those coaches that really weren't that great in my career, because I wanted to be that coach that I wish I would have had in that scenario, if that makes sense. So there were tons of things that I learned not to do that I was just like, okay, this is how I need a coach. And this is how I want to help athletes. So when I started dabbling into lessons, when I was a volunteer assistant at Purdue, I was kind of that person for those athletes. Like I was just figuring this out. I was telling them basically, what is it that I wish I would have heard in the scenario? And then all of a sudden I see them like trying harder and going harder after their goal. And I'm just like, okay, all right, this is cool that I can inspire an athlete to be bigger than herself. So that's kind of where the addiction started. And I'm calling it an addiction because I'm always thinking about my coaching. I'm always thinking about my kids. Which is probably unhealthy in some ways.
Because they're passionate.
Yeah. but that's kind of like where the spark started. And actually, I need to say this too. I remember being an athlete at Purdue, and we used to have camps, you know, in the winter and then in the summer. And everybody else on the team, mostly everybody else, was just like, oh, I hate camp. Like, it's an all-day thing. You're exhausted by the end of camp, and it's just a long day, and you're stuck at the same station, and you're teaching. And I loved camp, guys. Like, I loved it. And this is when I was an athlete. Like, I don't know why I'm so different here, but I love camp. I think that's kind of where I look back on it, and I'm just like, maybe it started there because I love teaching. And I love that I'm in the shoes that this girl wishes she could be in. She wishes to wear a Purdue uniform, and I get to go teach her how to be that. So that's probably where the spark started. And then I learned a ton through good coaches and bad coaches to kind of like morph me into like a coach that's very different than most, working on the mindset stuff. Because in my college career, college career was amazing. It was some of the best 4 years of my life. And then I went on to pro, and I know I mentioned some of the not so great stuff on the last episode of how that really got to me, and the mental skills aspect. And honestly, my mental health was not in a good place. And, you know, meeting with my sports psychologist and learning all of these strategies to help build my confidence back up and be who I'm meant to be really made me realize that, like, okay, my whole life I've been focused on the skills, like the physical skills, to where I need to put some time into the mental. So now that's what I'm teaching my athletes now, as to how can you pair the physical with the mental, because that's actually what sets apart the good athlete from the great and amazing athlete.
Yeah. I love hearing your story because we're so similar. Like my dad was my coach growing up. You know, I had my fair share of like bad coaches, but like with him, he was amazing. Like he knew the game. Like I role model how I coach after him, just because I saw like what he did with his teams, you know, and how the athletes respected him. And then also too, like you said, like even like the mental health and mental skills aspect of it, and seeing what can be improved, and especially the women's game, just because that's what we're so passionate about, but even with our other athletes and stuff. So I literally love hearing that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I relate to your story so much. And it's like, it's really cool to see, because I feel like you probably feel this, both of you, like we've seen coaches and we're almost like, why are you coaching? Like you seem miserable. You literally yell at us 24/7. You're always mad. Like, why are you coaching? And I've always thought to myself, I'm like, I don't want to be that. Like, I want to give these girls like a spark, like give them energy, give them a reason why they should love this game and feel encouraged, and tell them like my struggles so that they don't have to go through it. Or if they're going through it, they're more equipped to get through it and have more of a positive experience. So like hearing that is so encouraging, especially like with just women athletes in general. Like it's so encouraging that there are people who truly want to coach because they want to make a difference in the sport and these girls' lives and every aspect. And the thing is, like Ashley, it's like, yeah, you're helping them with softball and helping them get better, you know, hitting averages or batting averages and all of those things. But at the end of the day, you're making them better people, because they're going to take these skills and that confidence that they're learning onto to like when they step off that field. So that's what's so encouraging and just makes my heart super happy.
I love that. It's funny.
I completely agree. What were you saying?
I was going to say, it's funny you mentioned batting averages, because I actually just got on one of my kids this week, because she came, and if she listens to this, she's going to be like, she's talking about me. But she came to a lesson and she goes, I hit 500 this weekend, Ashley. And I was just like, okay, you know, 500 could also mean just like a bunch of bloopers over the shortstop's head, like not actually like decent hits, but like just finding, you know, the field. And she's just like, oh yeah, you're right. And then I was just like, how did you feel this weekend? Like, did you feel like you were absolutely crushing the ball this weekend? She goes, yeah. And I was like, that's what I want to hear. Like, I want to hear that you felt confident. I want to hear that you crushed it. Like, I don't care about your stats. But that's the thing. When you don't care about your stats, that's when you find your results. And I have a lot of stories about how when I knew my stats, I did not do great. So I was like, I do not want you to know your stats, any of them. Dad can know them, your coach can know them, but as soon as you know them, there's like this mind game that nobody needs to be on. So the stats will like, they'll just show themselves. Like when you stop thinking about them and just focus on like, how are you feeling? and continuing to create that and making it happen again. That's the priority. Sorry, I went off on a tangent, but I'm like, I have to talk
No,
about
you're good.
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say real quick how I just think it's amazing how like this day and age, I know there's still a select few and like we're trying to like reach out to these younger crowds to like preach confidence and to believe in yourself. But the fact that us three have had our struggles with mental mindset through not so good coaches or places that we've been at or experiences, but to have the strength to be like, you know, I'm going to take that and realize that's not what I want this next generation to have. And I'm going to know the right stuff and I'm going to give it back and I'm going to share it to them. And I'm going to say, hey, I did go through some bad things, but I won't treat you how I got treated because that didn't help me. It hurt me and it made me question myself. It made me question my abilities. But to be here today with both of you, to have that mindset, knowing like, I'm going to take what I went through. Yeah, was it a struggle? It sure was. But I had more laughs than struggles at the time. And now one day I hope to give a kid the same thing, but even more laughs instead of struggles and be like, you know what, before it even gets too far, I went through this, but let me help you because I can help you handle it in a better way. And I think that is huge, especially in the female world, especially when it comes to sports, no matter what sport it is, we definitely need a strong female voice to be like, hey, I went through this, but it's not right. And it's not going to be right anymore. And I'm going to make sure you get what you deserve.
Yeah. And we're not perfect either. Like, I need to throw that out there because there are days where I feel like I'm the worst coach on the planet. And I do things that I know I don't want to be portrayed as doing, but like, I think it's good to just preach that like coaches are human beings too. And we also are kind of like going through this. So I think when you were mentioning that, I really thought about, you know, sometimes there's that pressure of like being the perfect coach because like you didn't always have the perfect coach, but like we're also going to make mistakes along the way. But I think that's like the consensus between us three. It's like, but we're actually going to like learn from that. And like, I don't know if you're the same way as me, but I get so upset with myself when I come home from lessons and I'm like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said what I said to this girl. Like, I don't know how she took it, you know, but that's just the life of being a coach, I think.
It is. I just had that this week where I just felt I was tired. Like since February, I have been driving once a week, an hour and a half there and back to go to a practice. And because I want to be with the girls, you know what I mean? And those types of things. And I just was tired. When I got there, it's been raining in Florida constantly. And that makes me just drowsy in general. And I'm just like not feeling as whatever, but I was really, you know, excited to see the girls. And like, I haven't seen them for a little bit because we took some time off and all this stuff. And then when I got there, I just felt like I couldn't come up with like the drills I normally come up with, or like the ball handling that I normally do, or I felt like I've done this before. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, what's something? And I just felt like brain fog. And I walked in and my dad was sitting at the table and he was like, how's practice? I was like, I was like, it could have been better. I just felt like I didn't like, not that I didn't give it my all. I just felt like I had more to give and I just couldn't find it almost. He goes, that's okay. It happens. And I'm like, okay, that's all I needed to hear. Like, I can't be on all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to have this time. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like you said, I'm not a perfect person. So that means I'm hell for sure not a perfect coach. So it's like, you got to keep grinding that out.
We got to give ourselves grace. I mean, we preach to our athletes, like, give everything that you have. And if you only have 80% that day, give 100% of the 80. And like, why don't we tell ourselves that? I just had this light bulb moment in my brain. I'm just like, why do I expect perfection every time? Oh,
literally. Wow, we're all learning here. We're all coming.
We're like,
this is like a recorded mastermind.
It is.
I love that. Well, actually, okay, we've been talking about all of these amazing things. Now, I feel like you've given us so much fire, like insight and encouragement and just knowledge. Go ahead and let's talk about your business really quick and the course you just launched. Where can people find that? What is it about? And what are you looking to kind of like get out of this course with all the athletes in it?
Yeah, so this is my first time launching this particular course. The one that you're mentioning is the Complete Hitter Roadmap. So I always think of sports as like, again, we don't want to just worry about the physical. We don't want to just worry about the mental. I think that when you can pair the two, that's where you're going to find your best self. So this course was really written, you know, it's a really tough course, to be honest. We're actually wrapping up the first round of it. So this was a 4-week course for hitters to be able to build up their mental and their physical strength. So it was 3 days a week of actual work, like a full workout. It's probably going to take 30, 45 minutes. And then once you complete the workout, we journal, just like Emma was talking about, you know, how do we feel after this? Are we sore? Like to kind of just like getting in tune with our body and our mind. So that was a 4-week program. We're actually wrapping it up. We have our final team party this Sunday, and I'm really excited for them to get all their gear. But this is a course that I plan to launch multiple times a year. So I'll probably be relaunching this course in the fall. But this was kind of like a little tester, this first round, because I really want to see what it is that the athletes need most. What were their biggest takeaways? How can we make round 2 better than round 1 type of a thing? So I'll be launching that again this fall, probably around like September, November, because this one was really fun. But I also have like so many other coaching things that I have out there, probably too many things, to be honest. But I run the thing called a Smash Tribe. Smashly was like my nickname, so I call them the Smash Drivers. And they're just basically members of my community that can meet with me one-on-one. We can have mental skills calls, or we could do a hitting lesson virtually. That was basically what I wish I would have had, was to not drive 2 hours to lessons every week. So I jumped into that actually before COVID. So this virtual coaching was like a thing before it was a thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. But then also like in-person stuff. And I love, like, my favorite thing that I'm just starting to do more of is like clinics and camps, like in person. I did a 2-day clinic in Nebraska. I probably slept for like 5 days after that because I was so tired. You guys know, like sometimes when you pour everything into kids, like you are just exhausted.
Yeah. Vacation.
Yeah, for sure. I always plan like a vacation or like days off like right after that on purpose.
Yeah. Me too.
But yeah, I really want to do more clinics in person across the country, and there have been requests for other cities, so we'll just have to see where I'm going to next.
Wow.
Amazing.
Congrats. Yeah.
Like your courses, where can people find those?
www.ashleybtraining.com. You'll be able to find all this stuff.
Absolutely amazing, guys. I will have all of that information down below, and also on Instagram, and she'll be tagged on the Instagram at Us Girls United when the podcast comes out. That way you guys can just like go straight to her page and see that stuff, make it easy for you guys. But I definitely suggest checking it out, because obviously if you're listening to this portion of the podcast, you heard all the knowledge and fire that Ashley brought. So I'm super pumped to have her on again and just get to hear more about her as a whole. So it's been super awesome, Ashley. Thank you for joining us again. I'm just
thank you.
That was amazing.
Oh, thanks for having me. You guys are the best.
Anytime. I do want to say really quick though, I appreciate the fact that we have taken time to actually set aside the difference between mental health and like mental skills, because I think everyone considers if something, I don't want to say like something's wrong with people, but like if you're struggling with something or you're going through something, everyone always directs it right towards mental health. Like there's mental health problems, but it could be something way less deeper than that, or it could be something as deep as mental health problems. But I think it's huge, especially with the field of study that I'm going into. I want to go into mental health. And so to actually have people wanting to say the same thing, spread the same message, it's huge, because that's what our players need to hear nowadays. That's what even older players still need to hear. You're not going to categorize yourself into one category. You could fall in maybe just the tiniest one that could be fixed, maybe by constant journaling, maybe by just going to counseling to talk to someone. But if it is a deeper problem, that is something serious, yes, please feel free to go get help, and be safe with whoever you want to confide in as well, because those people will help you and lead you to the right people. So I think it's huge. I appreciate that being a big topic of this podcast today.
I know that was, I'm so glad we talked about it too. And Jay, I'm going to send you those 2 podcast interviews with the mental skills coach and then my sports psychologist from college, because I think that if people are like listening to this and saying, whoa, like maybe I need to look into this, those 2 episodes, like my mind was blown during those 2. So if people want to like dabble into it more, I can send you a link to those.
Episodes. Do it. Definitely. Oh, for sure. I would absolutely love that. But thank you so much, Ashley, for joining. Guys, like we said, we're going to have all of our information so you can find it down below or on the at Us Girls United Instagram page. And with that being said, make sure to rate and review this podcast, as well as share with anybody who might need the absolute knowledge that Ashley, spit today, which honestly, probably every athlete needs it. So you should be sharing this podcast. I mean, come on. But again, I will see you guys next week with another episode. Peace.